Thanks for tuning in to the episode of The Aydin Show, sponsored by our friends at Casa Homes. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Aydin Show. The word Aydin means enlighten, and that's exactly our goal. We're here to enlighten you, share knowledge and wisdom, and inspire our youth. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm your host, Ahmet Oruç, and today's guest is Ekrem Fuldagli.
Fuldagli.
That's right, brother. Brother, where does that name, where does that last name
it's very
originate
interesting,
from?
actually. But first of all, thank you for inviting me into your show.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. Thanks once again.
Glad to have you, Abi.
Okay, Fuldagli. Interesting. Only a few people have that surname. Even in Turkey, there's only one family with that surname, and that's my family.
Okay.
So it harkens back to the origins of my family. So my family originally is from an island, Cyprus. Of course, everyone knows what Cyprus, Cyprus.
Yeah.
My father emigrated to Turkey and joined the military there when he was about 18. And Cypriot Turks, they didn't have surnames back there. There was a change of the law in Turkey under the new republic where you had to have a surname in the Western sense. And my dad went there with the name Mustafa Mehmet, which means Mustafa, son of Mehmet.
Okay.
And basically the military said, listen, we've got a change in names here. The law requires you to have a surname.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? He said, what do you mean? And they said, well, here's a list and pick a name. So they gave him a 3-page list and he had a look and he liked that name, Fuldagli.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, okay, I will have that name.
So that's how it was back in the time.
Yeah, that's how it was.
Everyone got their last name
Correct.
in Turkey and in Cyprus.
There's nothing pre that surname law change that indicates a family belongs to anybody with that surname, because they're all basically allocated during the early period of the Republic. The thing is, people still don't know what Fuldagli is, and often we get that mucked up with Fundala. But Ful is a name of a Turkish flower, and in English that name is gardenia. So the name actually means mountain full of gardenia flowers. Fuldagli, like that da is full of gardenias.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if I asked you what's a gardenia, you'd probably say, I don't know, but
Now
you can Google that later.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty flower, very nice scent. It's very nice. So
Amazing.
yeah, nice.
So tell us a little bit about Turkey and Cyprus, you being a Cypriot Turk.
Look, first thing is I was born here. Okay, so my father was one of the first immigrants to Australia. He came in 1950.
Wow.
Okay, the earliest Turkish Cypriot came to Australia in 1947. So he's only 3 years post that, and I think he was in the first 10 of Turks that came to Melbourne.
Yep.
So they're here from the beginning. We can talk about that later. But go back to Cyprus. Okay, Cyprus, farming family. Dad was from a farming family, and what happens in Cyprus is they have a lot of kids, and the farms get subdivided, and it becomes uneconomical to run the farm as a business. So people emigrate. That's why a lot of Cypriots emigrate. So Dad, he went to Turkey, and of course, when you go to Turkey and you're a young man, they say, "Hey, you, come here. There's something called military service." And you have to do military service because you're a Turk.
24 months, isn't it, back then?
Unfortunately for Dad, he joined in 1936.
Yeah.
And in 1938, when he was about 3 months away from the end of his duty, World War II broke out. And they had German Panzer tanks on the Greek border. And there was a real risk that the Nazis were going to come into Turkey.
Okay.
And so everybody had to extend their military service. So Dad actually did 2 terms at that period.
Because there's not much spoken about with World War II. We were in World War I, we all know that. But World War II, I don't think Turkey really got involved too much, did they?
Turkey officially joined only for the reasons of joining the United Nations. But Turkey itself played a brilliant game, which the Ottomans played for a long time and extended the life of the Ottoman state. And that was to play the powers off against each other. So it stayed neutral, okay? And the motto was peace at home, peace abroad.
Yeah.
That's a Kemalist statement, which is at the center of the Turkish political worldview. It's like, we don't want to be involved in any wars. We have suffered immensely, and we were almost destroyed, and we've come back from that, and we're not involving ourselves in war. We have a state, and we're interested in our state, and leave us alone. So it's that sort of thing. But, of course, the world being what it is, and a world war being what it is, both sides, both the Germans and the English wanted to drag Turkey into the war, okay? And credit to the government at the time, they played them off and they didn't get involved.
Yeah.
There were numerous attempts to drag Turkey in, but Turkey basically stayed neutral. So although they stayed neutral, that threat was always there, and that's why that service period was extended for soldiers.
And your father was unfortunately stuck in there. So how long did he end up staying in the army for?
Oh, well, it was less than 4 years. Okay. But my dad, he was fortunate because he went over to Mersin as a grunt. So he was in the infantry division there. And he was born in 1915. So the significance of 1915 was that it wasn't a Republic of Turkey. It was still the Ottoman state. And even though Cyprus had been wrenched away from the motherland and the British were in control there, the Turks still educated their kids in Old Turkish. So my dad wrote and spoke Ottoman Turkish. Oh. So when he went to Turkey and joined the military, they noticed his writings, okay, and they said, "This you write very clear Ottoman, what we call eski Türkçe, right? Very clear." So they sent him over to Ankara, and he had a very nice plush office job there, where he was translating the old Ottoman Turkish war manuals into modern Turkish with the Latin script. Okay, and that was something which continued even after he got out of the army, because obviously the archives were so large.
Yeah,
there was a lot of books to translate.
Yeah,
and military was. Do
you believe a lot of our history got lost in those archives?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Only the bare essentials were kept, and it's not a secret that many books were burnt and destroyed.
Okay.
But military is one that they kept, of course, wasn't it? So if it added value to the new state, the new vision, that they were translated. And an interesting thing is that I went looking for old books when I was in Istanbul back in '99, and I found some good stuff, like from 1870 periods. And I haven't translated them. Another good.
The grandfather didn't pass that down, did he?
Like my dad, not my grandfather. So
your dad didn't know how to speak the Ottoman.
He knew how to speak Ottoman. So Ottoman contained a lot of Persian and Arab words.
Yeah, it's not Arabic. So we get a lot of people misunderstanding that it's, if you can read the Ottoman, you could read the Quran.
You couldn't read Arabic per se without making mistakes. So you could read it, but it's in the pronunciation, the emphasis of the harakats, the
So you can read the Quran with the Ottoman, but
Absolutely.
Arabic, you won't understand it at all.
You won't understand it. You'll understand some words, because at that time, a considerable part of the vocabulary consisted of Persian and Arab words.
Okay.
And they still stay. Like pehlivan is a Persian word for wrestler. We still have that.
Yeah.
We still have many Arab and Arabic-based words and Persian words, but at my dad's time, I've got dictionaries from 1930s from my dad, and I compare that to a dictionary now. And the sad thing for me is that why were these words replaced with French and Italian words? I don't see the value in that. So where they couldn't substitute a Turkic word, which is often, because why? The original Turkic peoples were what? They were nomads.
Yeah.
So they lived in yurts and they moved around. They're not going to have sophisticated words for things. Okay. So they borrowed those words. So even
from the Swiss I hear. So we've got some words. So you're saying France being one of them. Yeah.
Look,
Switzerland being another.
I was so oblivious to this that I thought the word merci was Turkish. The Cypriots used merci as sağ olasın, teşekkür ederim continuously.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that was French. We were using words that we just didn't even know were foreign words. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
But I can pick up words that maybe a Lebanese person or someone with an Arabic background would be speaking to me, and I'd know that word only because we used to hear our parents speak eski Türkçe. Because Cyprus didn't become part of the Turkish education system really until 1974. Post 1974, things are very much the same. Turkey and Cyprus, they run the same.
Give us a little insight of Cyprus. So when did the Turks get there?
Okay, the Turks, what it was is Venice was a seatime power. Venice, people might know, is an Italian city. At the time, there was no such place as Italy. So you had what was called papal states in the area. So you had Genoa and Venice as the primary powerful Italian states, and they had empires. Now, the Venetians being people from Venice, you know, the city in Venice where they have canals and waterways. This is Venice.
Yeah,
okay.
Italy.
It's part of Italy now, but it had its own state and it had its own empire.
Okay.
They were merchants. So they were a merchant empire. What did that mean? They're businessmen. Okay, so what they did was post-Crusades, okay, so what happened was Cyprus was originally, let's start just with the Byzantine Empire, which is the Greek Empire.
Yeah.
Which
This is the one Fatih Sultan Mehmed.
Correct. Okay. So Cyprus was part of that. The Venetian, eventually that came under the control of the Latins. The Latins were who? They're basically the Western Europeans, French, English, Italians. So during the conquest of Jerusalem in the Crusade period, Cyprus was also taken by the Crusaders. And so it became a Latin kingdom, and the Greeks, who were Orthodox Christians, were enslaved. They were basically serfs of the Crusaders, and they didn't have a good life. They were oppressed. So what the situation was that when Turkey tried to navigate its fleet around the Mediterranean, it was often attacked by these seafaring states such as Venice, etc. It became a hindrance. So they said, okay, look, the importance of Cyprus, it lies between Anadolu, Egypt, Africa, and the Middle East. Yeah.
Palestine, yeah.
What they call the Levant, okay, which is Syria, Palestine, Jordan, Iraq, that side, okay? So Cyprus is, and that's why the British loved it. Okay, and they're still there. They've still got military bases. But let's get to the point. Yeah. Okay, Cyprus is bang there. So Sultan Selim, who was the son of Sultan Süleyman Kanuncu, he ordered the edict to conquer this island. Okay, so it was under the control by that time of the Venetians. So it was changing hands amongst different Crusader peoples. Okay, the Venetians were one of them. Venetians are Italian.
Yeah.
Okay, they had an established community on the island of Cyprus, and they were using the Greeks to toil the land basically as farmers, and they didn't give them many rights. So the Ottomans conquered the island with an army. The hardest city to take was Famagusta. They suffered immensely. It took them over 12 months to capture that town.
Wow, okay.
It's got a beautiful fort. If you ever go there, I'm talking about Gazi Mausa. Some of my Cyprus vatandaşes don't like me using the word Famagusta. It's an English word, right? It's
Nothing
like saying, oh, well, we often say Turkey, but Turkey's a bird. Isn't it Türkiye? And they've got the same attitude. Let's just use our own words for our own country, for our own cities.
Yeah.
And I said, so far, that's fine. But how are you going to eliminate that from the English dictionary? Yeah. And I said, wouldn't it be a good idea if we can get world recognition for our country first before you want to, make a point of this? Like, I don't like to waste my energy on things like that, but that's fair enough. It's Gazi Mausa or Mausa.
Okay.
That's the town we're talking about. And if you can just go on Google, have a look at it. It's a beautiful, fortified town. Now, they suffered immensely there, and the Ottomans made a rule there that nobody could live in the actual, behind the walls of Mausa unless they were Ottoman Muslims, okay? Because it was such a difficult place to capture. and a lot of lives were lost. So what happened was the Sultan gave an edict or a firman, and he said, basically, I'm going to grant land to the conquering soldiers and their families. So they came from various places in Anadolu, many south, west, north, east, but many Konyalis moved to Cyprus.
Okay.
I don't have the exact numbers, between 20 and 40,000.
Do you know roughly when this period was?
Yeah, it was late 1500s.
Wow, okay.
Okay,
yeah.
so maybe 120, 130 years post conquest of Constantinople, or what we know as Istanbul.
Yes.
Okay. So Ottomans have been established, and I think Selim was the fourth sultan after Fatih Sultan Mehmet. Don't quote me wrong on that, but he could be. He's definitely the son of Sultan Suleiman. So I think Sultan Suleiman was the third down the line.
Okay. So there was about 20,000, 30, so roughly about those numbers that moved behind those walls to live there.
Not just that town, all over Cyprus.
Okay.
So they were given land all over Cyprus. And this is what the Ottomans did. They didn't concentrate the population. They spread them around. Okay. Now, the Greeks were very happy. They welcomed the Ottomans with open arms.
Yeah.
And the Ottomans basically said, look, to the Venetians, the ones that didn't leave, because there were Venetians that didn't leave. So there's Italians that didn't leave Cyprus. They said, we don't recognize the Catholic religion here. We recognize Christianity, but there's going to be basically a preference for the Orthodox Christian religion.
Okay.
Now, Italians, they didn't like the Orthodox religion, so most of them converted to Islam, the ones that stayed. However, they're known as crypto-Muslims. So what does that mean? That means basically they still practice Catholic rituals at home. Now, you'll find the Cypriots, you'll go there and you'll see a mixed bag of Cypriots. You see them with green eyes, blue eyes, blonde hair.
Yeah.
And then you see very dark Cypriots, almost black. Yeah. And so it's very, very, it's very mixed community.
You're right, because you've got your very dark ones as well.
Yeah, we have various words. I don't know if you have this in Turkish, esmer. That word, dark.
We get that in Anadolu.
We also have a word, halaik, which means dark Negroid woman. Yeah. Because we used to have wet nannies and people from Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia that came across. So the bottom line is these people eventually, and even in the early days, there were quite a few Greeks that converted to Islam. So you had intermarriage between that Turkish community descended from the soldiers and, these different groups of people, which were Greek and Italian.
Yeah.
Okay. And in addition to that, you had some migration that occurred. You'd have Palestinian or Syrian, what we call Levantine Arabs coming across and marrying predominantly Turkish Cypriot women. Okay. That was what was happening, as well as even during the British times, they had a bit of a mass migration of Maghrebi Arabs, which are North African Arabs, from places like Libya to Cyprus. And they were a separate community. They used to speak Arabic at home. But when the British decided to have a consensus, they said, we don't recognize anything other than Turk and Greek, so which one are you? And over time, that's when people started to either be Greek or Turkish.
Okay.
Oh, I tell you, there's a Maronite community on Cyprus. Do you know what a Maronite is?
No.
Okay. Lebanon has 4 predominant religions and many more, but they've got 2 types of Islam, what you want to call Sunni and Shia.
Yep.
And then you have Maronites who are Catholic Christians. And,
now I know what we're talking about.
And then you have Orthodox Christians, which are Greek Orthodox.
Anglo-Saxon Christians.
No, that's different again. Okay. Yeah. So the Maronites were also on the island of Cyprus, and they eventually became known as Greek as well. So that sort of disappeared, right, and molded. And so often during this day of ancestry searches and DNA testing, we come up with some really interesting results. And I had a friend, write to me and say, look, this is the DNA results. Can you give me a breakdown of it? And it was really interesting. And goes for Turkey as well.
Okay.
I'd shock your listeners by saying, like, you only really got the average of Anadolu is like 20-25% Turkic blood.
Anadolu, okay.
Okay. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
We got invaded a lot as well, didn't we?
It's not about Anadolu. You got to stop thinking about Anadolu. So we've recently come to Anadolu from a place called Turkmenistan. Right? That's where the Oğuz Turks or the Kayı tribe in particular have its origins. So you watch Dirilish, Ertuğrul, you know all about that. Okay, what it is before the Turks came to Central Asia was Iranian. All right, it used to be run by Persians. All right, but they called them Scythians. It's an ancient name. It's not important. Turks are a Mongoloid, well, not Mongoloid, but they look like Mongoloid people. So in other words, they have slanted eyes and they have similar features, right? So Kazakhs are probably more representative of the way that the old Turks used to look.
Yep.
But when they when they conquered Central Asia, which now we think is the homeland of the Turk, which it isn't. It was another stage of their journey. And many reasons why the Turks had to move down west was because the Chinese built the Great Wall. So they liked to get into China, but the Chinese built the Great Wall, so they came west, right?
Okay.
They married into this community. So the bloodlines became Europeanized. So they call it Indo-European, where you start to adopt European features.
Okay.
You see how different you and I look from one another.
That's true, yeah.
And you probably don't know your DNA background.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well, be careful when you get your DNA background, because a lot of these, places where you give your DNA over, I wouldn't do it. I did mine through National Geographic.
Okay.
And
Ancestry.com, I think.
I wouldn't go to any of those.
Yeah, okay.
They'll return a result telling you've got so much Jewish blood.
Wow, all right.
Yeah, they
I
like
was
to say that.
expecting maybe Mongol, because I know in Kayseri, where we're from, Kayseri, Konya, they all got invaded by the Mongols early on. But Jewish.
Yeah, the reason they say Jewish is misleading.
Okay.
So they say that, but it really means Arab or Arabic, because the Jews and Arabs they're Semites, right? They're Semitic people.
Yeah.
Okay, so they like to say Jewish. So they want everyone to think they've got a Jewish background. It's good for them.
Yeah.
All right, but it isn't. It isn't. There's only so many Jewish population in the past, as you know, a small percentage, and a lot more of the Arabic. And we know the history of the Arabs across the Middle East and intermingling in the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
And that's what it represents. And often they won't even tell you you're Turkic. If you did one through Ancestry.com, they'll just say West Asian.
All right.
Now, because I'm into all that, I know what West Asian means. West Asian means
what's
Turkic.
what's the one you recommend?
I don't recommend any. I did mine through National Geographic.
Yep.
I know a lot of our listeners don't like this stuff because you're going to give your DNA away, and that's going to get into places that you might not want it to, but, it's up to you.
Makes sense.
If you're a law-abiding citizen and you don't care about, all that stuff, without mentioning what you know, but you're reading my face, yeah? So if you don't care about all that and you're just going to live your life and you're a good civilian obeying the law and everything, and there's no issues, you don't care who's got your DNA, fine.
Yeah.
Get it done. But I wouldn't get it done through Ancestry.com, and there's a few others.
Yeah.
Because, the background is Israeli, okay, that are running this. Okay, so you can either have your DNA located in Tel Aviv or Washington. It's up to you. Which take your pick. Okay,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Without saying anything else.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get back to Cyprus.
Okay.
Let's get back to what. So people were living in peace once the Ottomans got in. They obviously captured
loved the Ottomans.
The Greeks loved, as you were saying,
the Greeks loved the Ottomans. They welcomed them with open arms.
Okay. How long did that go for, and why did that change eventually? Why did they decide to do terrorism and kill innocent Cypriot Turks?
Okay, we'll start with the British, okay? So the Ottoman Empire was in decline.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened was we had what was called the Crimean War. One of the most famous battles was called the Charge of the Light Brigade, where this British top unit just charged with its cavalry right into Russian guns, and everyone was bombed to pieces. Basically, it went down to the skills of the Sultan and his administration saving the Ottomans from collapse, because Russia was always interested in capturing Istanbul, always. And what's the reason for that? Russia is a landlocked country. Russia needs to get into a warm water port. Can't get into a warm water port. Conquered Crimea. Crimea used to be a Turkish country, okay? And there's no Turks there now. A few Tartars were allowed to return.
Yeah.
But, it became under the administration of Ukraine, and there was a war recently and Russia took control of it. But, okay, it grabbed the Crimea and it wanted to come down to Istanbul, take Istanbul, and then come out of the Black Sea and into the Mediterranean, conquer whatever it wanted to conquer.
Yeah. That gives them opportunity to be able to go. Yeah, okay.
That was the plan. So in one of the battles, in one of the wars, because the Ottomans fought 12 wars with Russia, and it only won one.
Wow.
So, it's an interesting topic, but, it's a subject that is expansive. So let's just say that, okay, the British came to the aid of the Ottomans. They had this thing called the Crimean War. They went into Crimea and they had a war. They had battles, mass battles there. And as a result of that, they demanded territory from the Ottomans because the Ottomans couldn't pay them the money, but they wanted territory anyway.
Yeah.
So at this time, Greece was already independent, but it had what it called the Megali idea, which was to reestablish the Byzantine Empire. So everywhere the Orthodox Christians lived, they would reconquer. That was called the Megali idea. So Crete at the time was, the history of Crete is amazing because at one time over 50% of the population were Muslim. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
You won't find one Muslim on the island. You'd be like, I don't even think there's a mosque on the island today. So from 50% to zero. Yeah. This is the history of the Ottoman people. Okay?
Surprisingly, there isn't a mosque in Greece.
There is a mosque in Greece. There's no mosque in Athens.
Okay, so it's in Athens that we've got the issue of, they're saying 200,000 Muslims are there and they don't have anywhere to pray.
Yeah, they pray in, office buildings and what you're going to call a masala, but even then they don't get proper licenses and they're restricted.
Yeah. So what happened though? What happened between the Turks?
Let's go back and shortcut what I'm saying is okay. So they wanted land, and the Sultan said take Crete because he knew Greece was going to get Crete sooner or later. Okay, but there was a Muslim population on Crete. All right, you want to call it Turkish? Call it Turkish. Let's call it Muslim because most of the Cretes were actually Greek Cretians that converted to Islam. Okay, so
yeah,
the British said no because they were always a big buddy of Greece, and because of them, France and Russia, the Greeks could never have defeated the Ottomans and gotten independence, but they destroyed our navies and we couldn't hold on to so it became independent. But it had this thing called Megali idea
in World War One.
No, before World War One, late 1800s. Okay, post the establishment of the Kingdom of Greece, and the Western royals gave them one of their owners and said, "This is the King of Greece." He wasn't even a Greek.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they said, "Take Cyprus." We said, "We don't want to give you Cyprus," but they wanted Cyprus. Why do they want Cyprus? South is Egypt, so they'd already taken control of Egypt because they came and helped us fight Napoleon. Many people don't know this. Napoleon invaded Egypt, which was then part of the Ottoman Empire, and everyone was amazed at how weak the Ottoman army was, and the French just smashed them. Okay?
Yeah.
The British came, but they didn't have left, and they took control. And then they said, you know what? If we put a canal through this part of Africa and West Asia through the Suez, then we can get down without circumnavigating Africa. We can get down to where we want along the Arabian coastline and out to our other big baby called India, which was British, under British control, which they also took off the Mughal Turks. That's another story. So they got Cyprus, okay, and everything was fine. the Turks and Greeks lived in peace as neighbours. There wasn't any problems. But after World War II ended, the British started losing all their provinces. So the British Empire was on the way out. Okay, it was already on the way out. However, it still hung on to, places like Hong Kong and some colonies in Africa, and Cyprus was one of them. And the Greeks started a campaign called Enosis, which means union with Greece. Well, the Turks on the island said, we don't want to become part of Greece. All right, let's just leave it as it is. We'll just leave it as it is. We're happy living as it is, So it would have had the status of what, say, Hong Kong had under the British. It was wealthy. It was, it was a good place to live, peaceful. Okay, so then the Greeks had a guerrilla army campaign using forces called Ioka and started murdering British military personnel, British police, and eventually British civilians and, soldiers' wives. And when the Turks started resisting, they started killing Turks. And it all spiraled into what they want to call a civil war. Well, a very uneven civil war because they had the guns and we didn't have anything, right? And Greece was supplying armaments because the plan was to unify the island with Greece, make it part of Greece. That's what Enosis means, all right? But it's part of the bigger plan to even take, during World War One, where they tried to take Izmir and they wanted Constantinople with the Byzantine. Yeah. There's all this fuss about Hagia Sophia. It all comes back down to this, all of it, right? So, they started killing Turks.
And this time period you're talking about?
There's 1960s now.
60s, okay.
Okay, so these things were gathering pace in the 1950s, but Dad had already left.
Yeah.
It's just such a strange thing that, when they got to Australia, got to Melbourne, that actually Greek Cypriots were their helpers, help them find a job, get them around, things like that, So there was no animosity there.
Yeah.
But you can learn the example even from Bosnia, where for years, Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, Catholic, Muslim, Orthodox, they just lived together and they intermarried each other.
Yeah.
Went to each other's religious festivals, went to each other's weddings. It wasn't a problem. Until someone called Milosevic said, you're Serb and you're this and you're that. And what I'm trying to say is you can have hundreds of years of peace and then you can undo it in 5 years. Because the propensity of people to hate each other is always there.
That's right.
Just give them a gun and out they go, right? So this happened in Cyprus. So Turks aren't going to take that lying around. You kill a Turk, man, he's going to come after you, yeah?
Yeah.
We know that. So when you start killing Turkish civilians, they want eye for an eye now. Okay, we're coming for you too. So Turkey didn't like the fact that Greece was trying to take over the island. Turkey could see it was already landlocked, right? You know the problems we got with the islands on the west coast, the Aegean.
Yeah.
And we boxed in there. It wasn't going to allow that. It said our Turks have the right to self-determination. If you think you got the right to self-determination, they've got a right to self-determination. So Turkey assisted the Turkish Cypriots in every way it could.
They flew planes towards Cyprus.
Well,
because I remember when I came from Kayseri Airport, as I was leaving Kayseri Airport for the first time, there was a monument there where it kind of showed that this was the place the planes flew from to aid Cypriot Turks.
Yeah. Look, before Turkey could do anything, it first realised we can't do much at all. And basically that was because it didn't have a navy. And something that is happening right now is so important. It's called the Mavi Vatan, okay, the blue homeland, which is saying Turkey isn't just Turkey, as in Anadolu, the landmass. It's everything south as well. That's our country as well. That's our blue country, the blue seas. And they couldn't land ships on Cyprus at the time. This is under the Inonu government. They couldn't land troops. They couldn't send aid because they didn't have a navy that was capable of that. They didn't have aircraft carriers. They didn't have proper fighter pilots. So they realised their shortcomings from a military perspective. I'm not talking about fighting on the ground. Yeah. Right? It's nothing to do with it. It's expanding your military operation outside of your home country. We had limitations. Okay, so there was quite a bit of bloodshed, and mainly a process of what we call ethnic cleansing or even genocide. So Greeks would come over to a Turkish village, kill everybody. Man, woman, child, mass graves. Wow. And this went on right up post-74 when we had the Troubles. I visited those places. I went to a place where they murdered Turkish army major's family, wife and children, and the brain cells were still hanging off the bathroom ceiling. It's very touching. There were a couple of Turkish commanders there at the time, and they were just like horrified and very upset. Mm. And so there is a very painful history in Cyprus that mainly the older people remember, not so much the younger ones. So the younger ones here think, okay, if we just make some peace process and somehow reconcile, that we'll get the benefits of being a member of the European Union, and we'll have jobs and we can travel freely, and that's their sort of thing. But they don't understand the history, the background, the blood. So to maybe
get that type of history, I guess Sunshine Mosque, is there some of the older guys there that kind of lived through that's seen that?
There is many. We have what we call Mujahid Groups.
Okay.
Mujahid was a term because we didn't have a formal army as such. So our group was called our self-defense group. Referred to our soldiers as Mujahids.
Yeah.
Okay, because it wasn't a formal army, and that's basically translated into freedom fighter. And they held the line where they could, and we have many members of our community groups and they have their own dernek as well, their own society.
Yeah.
And they can tell you the stories, and it'd be great if you could interview one of them to just tell you how difficult life was.
Even if we can just sit them down, order them a tea and have a bit of a conversation.
We can do that informally,
Yeah, that'll be great.
And this is why I would get very, very annoyed and very upset when I see these free loafers that just want a free ride. Well, sorry, you're not going to get it, because people spilled their blood and people were murdered. And I don't care if you want unification for economic benefits.
Yeah.
No. We'll just have to make Cyprus great ourselves. We've got to stop this mentality and start becoming self-sufficient and stop worrying about handouts from Europeans.
Yeah.
Turkey stands on its feet. Türk'ün dostu Türk'tür. That's how it's always been, and that's how it's all going to be. Yeah. And sometimes I wonder if Türk'ün dostu Türk'tür at all, because there's people within our own communities that want to
destroy it.
Yeah, it goes back to Saadettin Köpek, whatever his name was, that in dereliction. It's always been like that. Okay, internally, that's the greatest danger, and so there's no lack of that there. So it's a sad day, but it is unbelievable that the coffee plan, which was a United Nations based plan to reunify the island and end this conflict once and for all, that we gave most of what the Greek Cypriots wanted, and they still rejected it.
Wow.
Because what they're saying is, hey, this is our country, not yours. And we'll give you what we call minority rights, which is we'll recognize you as Turks and not Greeks or Cypriots, and we don't really want to reunify with Greece. We don't want to unify with Greece because it was never part of Greece. There was no such thing as Greece, right?
Yep.
Okay, it's a Byzantine Empire. So we don't want that, but and you'll be a freedom of religion, freedom to speak your language, but it's one vote, one man. Do you know what that means?
That their president counts.
Well, no. When you go to the polls, if you're only 20% of the population, you're only going to get 20%. Unless you're concentrated in a particular city or town, your vote will get diluted, and you'll never have representatives in Parliament that will agitate for your rights.
So it's dodgy in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
What sort of population is there of Turks in?
Well, there's about 200,000. If you want to call that.
The percentage-wise, what is it like? Is it 20%? Is it more?
It's not more.
Okay.
Yeah. Historically, it was at 18%.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's changed over the course of the island's history. I think the highest percentage was 30. Mm-hmm. But at these times of these troubles, it was 18%.
So a lot of people fled, got murdered.
Yeah. But you know what? We took about close to 30% of the island. And this is in the north, yeah? So this is called Kuzey Kıbrıs Türk Cumhuriyeti, KKTC. And this north part of the island has some beautiful towns and cities like Girne and, very nice coastlines. Okay, so...
What does it remind you of in Turkey? Similar to Antalya or
No, it's
Kaş
very similar to... The weather's very similar to Adana and Mersin.
Okay, so it's hot.
It's hot. It's very hot. Yeah. In summer, they're topping 45 now. It's dry. I mean, you can wear a T-shirt in winter. It's not a problem,
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
But, they've got a water problem over there. And they earn good money. I mean, Turkey really does support the economy, which would collapse overnight.
Without their help?
Yeah, without their help. So, that assistance, it's because we're the same people,
Yeah.
We are. And I don't care if other people have any other ideologies. As long as there's people like us around, we'll be agitating for the rights of at the Turkish community in Cyprus on a historical basis, which is that we are tied to the motherland.
There's also an army, Turkish army in there.
Yeah, there's about 20,000 to 30,000 Turkish troops that are stationed there.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. If you went there and you went to say Lefkoşa, in English that's Nicosia, which is the capital, you'll see is that the border there? Like there's this stretch of like 500 meters where you can't go down, and there's some tin sheeting separating the south from the north, and that's the border.
So easy to knock down and go over.
Yeah, no one will.
Yeah.
You just, you don't want to push it, you don't want to push your luck because you can travel between the two states now, but, each of their own. I once landed in Larnaca and came through that side, but I generally go through Istanbul if I visit Cyprus. I catch a plane from Istanbul.
Because it's obviously got its own airport in the Turkish side.
Yeah, it's got its own airport.
Turkish Airlines.
Yeah, near Lefkoşa, and then you just get a bus and go wherever you want, or you hire a car or whatever. So that animosity came because people started to be killed.
Yeah.
And of course, if you talk to Cypriots, they'll still say, no, we've got nothing against Turkish Cypriots, or we don't have anything against Greek Cypriots. We have something against the people who killed us, the people who persecuted us. We got something against them, and many of those people, you'll still find them on Cyprus. They say, we can't live with you anymore. They're still around. I'm just talking about that younger generation that haven't known war.
Yeah.
They're just looking at saying, hang on, the South is double the wealth or triple the wealth that we've got. They've got better jobs. They've got better money. They've got more money. Why can't we be like them? Oh, we're being held back. Who's holding us back? Oh, Ankara. Ankara's holding us back. Why don't they just make a deal? Well, that deal was on the table many times.
Yeah, I remember it.
Even Akıncı gave them a better offer.
Yeah, I remember Tape even doing it a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times.
Absolutely. Yeah. He can't make a direct offer because it's not his country too, but it's recommended, and there's working committee, Turkey, Greece, Cyprus, Turkish Cypriot, Greek Cypriot, and the offers have been there. They're rejecting it. So it's almost as if they believe they won the war, and they are saying, okay, we're won because we've got France and Germany behind us. We got Europe behind us. Turkey saying we're not the old lapdog we used to be that you can just, the poodle that we used to be in the past. We're quite independent and strong now.
Yeah, we've got an amazing army.
Well, our army, you got to say alhamdulillah, our army is almost going to be self-sufficient by 2050. in every sense of the word. So
they're building their helicopters, their fighter, fighter tanks. We've got subs and we've got ships, and they're building a lot of drones now too, man. Some amazing drones in a lot of countries like Pakistan and a few others around that region. Kuwait. So some of the Middle Eastern countries that are purchasing some of this stuff as well.
The capability of the Turkish military has been enhanced to the point where America has turned around and started appreciating it. Was amazed at how quickly Turkey turned the situation around in Libya. When Libya, the internationally recognized government, the GNA, asked for Turkey's assistance when it was under attack by forces supported by Egypt, UAE, the Emiratis, France. Right, it asked for Turkey's help. Turkey gave it help, and the drone technology turned the battle around, and America took notice. And I hear that the drone technology in Turkey is better than Israel's. And that's saying something.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, it's saying something. So we're going to have aircraft carriers. Our submarines will be top notch. Yeah. We are already, I think, a major arms exporter in the world, but as we go along, we've got great partnerships with big companies like Samsung in Korea, and they're developing new technologies all the time. So, Turkey, I don't know if you've ever listened to someone called George Friedman. Have you ever listened to him?
George Friedman.
Yeah, George Friedman's a geopolitical analyst out in America.
Okay.
20 years ago, he said Turkey is going to be not a regional power, which it is now, but he's saying a world power. And the whole establishment in Washington laughed at him. They just laughed at him. He said, Turkey, that broke, corrupt, good-for-nothing country that we kick around whenever we feel like it. And they laughed at him, but no one's laughing now. I should send you one of his speeches.
Definitely.
You're going to be very impressed. It's recorded 20 years ago.
Maybe we can put it on the video.
Yeah, put it on the video. You're going to,
And so when I look at the great Asian powers and I forget the newspapers, Japan leaps out immediately. That would be one power. The second power that I'm looking at is Turkey. Turkey now is the 17th largest economy in the world. It is larger than Saudi Arabia. It has an army and a military capability that is probably the best in Europe, with the possible exception of Great Britain. They could beat the Germans in an afternoon and the French in an hour if they showed up. So when we take a look at the Turks, it is not an accident that President Obama, when he finished his tour of Europe, it was quite an unsatisfactory tour of Europe, finished off in Turkey. And the message to the Europeans was very simply, I really enjoyed eating with you guys and talking to you guys and being told no by you guys. Now I'm going to go to a real ally that has real military power, is negotiating with the Syrians, is working in Iraq, has a very close line to the Iranians, and the Iranians are quite frightened of them, is negotiating with the Armenians, stabilizing the situation in the Caucasus, which is a serious power. Whenever the Islamic world in the past 1,000 years has had a unification, it has been under a Turkic power, and for 500 years it was under the Ottoman rule. And when it was under the Ottoman rule, the Arabs took a subordinate position, and the Turks created an order. Now, for the past 100 years, Turkey has been in a very strange position that it was never in before, because it was surrounded by first the Europeans, and then the Russians and the Americans. But the Americans are leaving, the Russians are not coming back, and the British are busy doing other things. And suddenly Turkey is unfolding its wings. And there's no one in the region when you talk to who doesn't, in every discussion of politics, doesn't in the second session build up, what do the Turks want?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was a laughing stock, and no one's laughing now in Washington. In fact, they're paying attention to him. He's become quite a little star when it comes to matters of Turkey. Yeah. So they go to him for analytical advice, strategic insights into how Turkey will go in its affairs in the Middle East. But he's saying that Turkey is actually going to take a more proactive role in its region, and you can see that being displayed now. Yeah. Like, for instance, this Mavi Vatan issue. Okay, gas is the gas that's been discovered in the Eastern Mediterranean is more valuable than the gas that the Qataris have. It's a huge gas field. And France comes over from friggin' France and says, we've got a stake in this. And Turkey's saying, hey, your country's over there. Why are you over here? Yeah. And so they're supporting France, Israel, Cyprus,
Egypt,
Greece, and Egypt signed an agreement.
UAE, I think, was another one.
UAE was another one. Yeah. Signed an agreement carving up the gas fields. And this was a problem because Turkey was saying you can't shut the Turkish Cypriots out of this equation. They've got a right. They've got a stake. Yep. Although no one recognises us, we have everything required. As our great leader, Denktash Rahmetli, said, we have everything required to call ourselves a state. We have our own economic systems. We have our judiciary. We have our own armed forces. We are a state. We'll recognise us as not, we're here, right? And no one's going to look after our interests except for the motherland, which is Turkey. And Turkey's saying, no, these gas fields, you have to give the Turkish Cypriots a right there. So we're going to drill on behalf of the Turkish Cypriots. Then something very interesting happened. When the Libyan internationally recognised government reached out to Turkey for assistance and Turkey willingly granted it, Libya awarded, because the two coastlines face each other, right? If you look south, you'll see Libya. Yeah. From Libya, if you look north, you'll see Turkey. So they drew an exclusive economic zone, a zone between them, and said, this belongs to both of us, okay? Yeah. Those other powers, being the Emiratis, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the French, they don't recognise this, okay? But again, we're saying, so what? Because we're independent, right? And we can justify this in international courts. So there's a lot of tension there. And there is the prospect of conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean, but we'll wait and see what develops.
Do we need that gas? Because
Turkey doesn't have gas.
Because we've got Azerbaijan now. I know there's an issue with Armenia. We can't really get a pipeline from there, so we've tried to make deals with Russia. They've got issues with Georgia, so they were thinking about crossing over from the Black Sea into Turkey. It's what's going on with the gas?
Okay, gas can be pumped from Azerbaijan, but it's got to go through what you want to call, hostile territory, or territory. One day the country's friendly, next day it's not. One day Russia's in there, next day it's not. That Turkstream project is still on the tables, right?
It's been on the tables for ages.
However, we're not talking about buying someone's gas. We're talking about owning the gas. It's our gas. Our gas. Turkey doesn't have gas. Everything runs on electricity or bottles, And so gas is a cheap energy source. And if it's for free, even better. Yeah. So it will go a long way to fueling the Turkish economy. I mean, the savings would be astronomical, right, in economic terms. So it's in Turkey's vital interest. It's like saying, there's gold in those hills there, but don't worry about it. Just let them take it. Yeah. Would we say that? No, we wouldn't. Say, no, hang on. Those hills are in our area, and you can't just shut us out of this agreement. We want a part of that. And it's no different. This is no different to that. So, it's an interesting times for the Turkish, people, whether you're Cyprus or mainlander. Just interesting times in the world.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So, Cypriots in Australia.
Okay.
So you guys came here in the 50s. Your father came here in the 50s. Were you born here?
Yeah, Dad got out of the army, so he's sent off to Ankara. He married a local woman there. It didn't work out. I've got a brother in Turkey. He's never come to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Different mother. He's my abi, and he's in his late 70s, and he's also a Fuldagli, and I've visited him quite a few times. So Dad came out here on his own.
Okay. And you said that the Greek Cypriots helped you guys. So where where were you located then?
Well, what happened was most of the Turks that came out were working in a tractor factory called Massey Ferguson, which has gone broke and no longer has a presence in Australia.
Okay.
But it was as big as John Deere. I don't know if you know about farm machinery, but Australia was an agricultural economy back then.
Yeah.
So Australia was wealthy on the sheep's back. They used to call it the lucky country. So it had all this land and not many people. It had more sheep than people and cattle industries and in mining. So that's all it had. Vastly different place. So Dad comes out here. He's called what you call a 5-pound pom. So as I told you, he came out with a British passport because the Turkish Cypriots were all Cypriots were under British administration then. Yep. And they were British subjects. So Turks weren't allowed to come to Australia then. They had something called White Australia policy. And you know what? They didn't classify Turks from Turkey as being white.
So the White Australia policy is only white people from Europe that could enter this country. Wow.
So what they were doing was they were only allowing immigration from England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland, and this is called the Anglo-Celtic Australia. These people that colonised the place. So the convicts were all mainly, Celtic. They had some English, and the rulers were British. English, right? So they continued the immigration from that country and started to dry up. And post-World War II, Australia wanted to industrialise. So that meant go from being an agricultural-based economy into an industrial one. Industrial one means factories.
Yep.
Expansion of city, right? These so-called cities like Melbourne, they were like country towns. I remember them. There was like nothing to do. So I grew up in the 60s, and man, I mean the shops would close at 12. So they came over to Sunshine. So that's where they settled. Okay, in a suburb called Sunshine in the west of Melbourne, and the Cypriot Turks still have their community centres out that way, and most of the old Cypriots and even some of the young ones still live out there.
Okay,
but Cypriots went everywhere, right, all over Melbourne. Okay, now. So you would go out to the shop. If you went out 10 past 12 on a Saturday, the shop's closed. And I'm talking a milk bar. There's nothing.
Yeah.
On Sunday, our only form of entertainment was a Scottish bagpipe band, like going through our street, and that was usually run by the local church. And then I was only a little kid, like 4 years old, and this guy leans over and gives me this card. And I look at the card and I'm looking, and there's this guy with, a cloud on his head and long hair, and, he's sitting on a cloud, and I go, what's this, a freaky, scary photo? I go, Mum, what's this? This guy said to me that this guy, they nailed him on a cross there, and he died for our sins and stuff. Mum, what's this guy? So a lot of church-going people, everyone went to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
Except us. Yeah. So that was the society. It was like a country-based society. You could the food was terrible. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Oh, food. It was
nothing compared to the food you guys would have eaten in Turkey. So coming here would have been just a shock. Absolute shock.
But the good thing is that the local Turkish Cypriot community did home cooking. Right?
Okay.
So but as I was growing up, and you go to a milk bar to buy something, man, that was like, do you want a sausage roll with your vanilla slice? There's nothing.
There's no halloumi cheese there.
There's nothing, right? It's very bland. English food was very bland, yeah? So multiculturalism has really helped us. But getting back to the White Australia policy, okay, So they come out in British passports. They got jobs that came out. They got £5. All right, that's what they got to start their life with. Dad came out, slept one night, into the factory the next day. Off you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did the mainlanded Turks start coming? They start coming in the late 60s. And believe it or not, one of the lobby groups that wanted the Turks out here was the RSL. Do you know what the RSL is? The Retired Services League.
Yeah.
Retired Soldiers League. Have very high regard for Turks because of the Gallipoli campaign in World War One. So they said, they said, we love Turks. Yeah. They're great fighters. We fought them. They're gentlemen as well. Great guys.
Throwing cigarette packets at each other and food. Yeah.
Look, it wasn't all that the historians want us to believe.
Yeah.
Chummy mates that just wanted to shoot each other. It was vicious.
Yeah.
You'll hear, if you read deep enough, there's some really shocking but battlefield brutality going on. But at the same time, there was this rapport that they had in certain areas of the peninsula. And that's a credit to the way the Turks conducted themselves.
The Australians, the Gallipoli campaign, when Gallipoli, when that day, when they celebrate that day, they look at it as that they were close. But when you read history from the Turkish side, or even history from the Australians, like if you start looking deeper into it, they were never close. The Turks, they were in the front line. The Turks were up in the mountain, and they couldn't get that mountain or get close to that mountain. Is that true?
Well, the main thing is that the whole issue of World War One was simply that Winston Churchill, who later went on to become one of England's or Britain's greatest prime ministers, it was his original brainchild. So Russia was having a hard time fighting the Germans, and we were on the side of the Germans, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay. This led to the dissolution of or the loss of our state, and almost the loss of Anadolu as well. But anyway, that's another story. But what happened was they wanted to simply capture Istanbul by sending their warships in.
Yep.
And the Germans helped us lay significant minefields within the straits, and so we sunk quite a few British warships, and they were very close. They were almost one ship close from busting through the mines, and they lost heart and withdrew. You read about it, and it's just subhanallah. You say, like, unbelievable.
I think it was 15 ships. Like one of the biggest ones they had was a Queen Elizabeth 1 and 2, and they both sank.
I don't know the details, but I know I always reflected upon the fact that they were like one ship away from victory, because they lost heart.
Yeah, they've got documentaries, on that battle where it was very intense for them, and they nearly lost their whole fleet during that period.
I wouldn't say they lost the whole fleet, but the casualty that they decided that it wasn't worth risking our fleet any more than it had. So they believed that at some stage they weren't going to break through the minefields.
Okay.
So once they made that decision, they weren't going to withdraw. They weren't going to proceed, and they were going to withdraw the Navy. Churchill came up with another friggin', idea of, we'll just land invade. We'll land on the hills there, and we'll march overland and capture Istanbul with our army.
Yeah.
And then, we'll clear them. We'll clear it all up, and then our ships can go in as well. Okay. Now, when you say they never had a chance, they did have a chance, and this is written in the military context of the fact that they didn't have a chance only because they landed in the wrong spot, as you know, the Australians did.
Yeah.
And very difficult terrain. But they almost broke through. And Ghazi Mustafa Kemal is famous for having stopped them. So at a point where even his troops ran out of ammunition, and that's when he made one of the famous speeches is, I'm not ordering you to fight, I'm ordering you to die.
Yeah.
And this is an amazing thing if you think deep enough, and you said this to a person, I'm not asking you to fight. Yeah. You're going to go there and you're going to die. And they went there, and that was their intention. And unfortunately, again, for the British and let's just say the Anzacs, they thought that the Turks had lain down as a military strategy, then something else was coming behind them. But Ghazi Mustafa Kemal said, in the time it takes for us to die, reinforcements will come and we'll be able to hold our positions.
Yeah.
So exactly what happened. They didn't have the ammunition, they fixed their bayonets and they laid down, the Anzacs laid down, thought that there was some sort of maneuver. For that, then the reinforcements did come and they couldn't break through after that. But what we did was we spent a lot of lives trying to push them into the sea. So we came down in waves and we were mowed down. So our casualty rates were incredible.
Yeah.
And as compared to the British casualty rates. And when I say British, I mean everyone that was serving. Because when you say you think of who was on the peninsula, you're thinking English, Australian, New Zealanders, aren't you?
No, I know that there's more than that.
There's the French there as well.
The Indians
are there. Yeah, but
New Zealanders are there.
No, Anzac is Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
And then you think British, right? With British being, from Britain, from the UK. But it was a multinational force spearheaded by the British.
But at the same time, we were getting hit with the Greeks. We were getting hit with the Russians, Armenians.
No, Greece wasn't in the picture. We were fighting the Russians unsuccessfully, and those disastrous. We lost so many men in the Kafkas Mountains. They froze to death because they sent them there with summer uniforms. And they couldn't break through the lines and they froze to death. And it's shocking footage. I don't know if you've seen the video footage where people, the soldiers are being eaten by wild dogs even. They couldn't even bury them.
Yeah.
And this all comes back to the disastrous military strategies of Enver Pasha, if you wanted to read about his ideas and his strategies. And that's just a part of history, part of history that's tragic, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And Greece came into the picture later, after the Ottomans had lost the war.
Okay.
And the Ottoman Sultan's administration signed...
How did they lose the war? So I heard they've won the battle. When we look at some of the books here in high school that they teach us, we won that battle, but we lost that war.
Gallipoli's only one battle. I mean, we beat the British in Baghdad. It was a very famous battle. So we performed. Look, everyone thought so poorly of the Ottoman Turkish soldier that they thought the mere sight of British soldiers, they'd throw their guns in and run away. They really miscalculated the Turks as fighting men. And that was because of the last 2 centuries of absolute defeat. But, that's just too big a topic to talk about. Yeah. Where did we go from being so strong to being so weak to the point of almost collapse? But the administration signed everything away just to keep Istanbul, and they were going to just give us a rump of land in the north of Anadolu, a desert state. And the rest was going to be split up. There was going to be an independent, bigger Armenia. There was going to be a Kurdistan. The south was going to be French and Italian. The islands, half of the Deccanese islands were going to be Italian. Greece was going to get the other islands plus Izmir, the hinterland of western Ege the Aegean Sea hinterland.
Yeah.
And they wanted Istanbul, but so did Russia, because originally the agreement was to give Russia Istanbul. But that fell apart when the Russian Revolution happened. I don't know if you know about the Russian Revolution. It happened in 1917 when Lenin and the communists basically defeated the Tsar, which is the Emperor of Russia, and became a communist country. So the British negated all agreements with Russia. But originally, Istanbul was going to be finally their long-awaited dream of, conquering Istanbul was going to happen. But, fate is what it is, and that didn't happen. So Ghazi Mustafa Kemal, once he got to Samsun, said, no, we're going to establish, you all have to leave. And he basically started the resistance movement, which there was only one intact army down there in the east under Kazım Karabekir, very famous general who stopped the creation of an independent Armenia.
Yeah.
At this time, even the Kurds were assisting Turkish people because we're one nation. We're Muslims, right?
Yeah.
That's it. There was no Kurdish-Turkish issue at all. We're just simply Muslims, yeah? So we're fighting in the same army. So even though the British or whoever drew up that there's going to be a Kurdistan, the Kurds, they're still fighting with the Turks, like on the same side.
Yeah.
So we started a resistance movement, and eventually that led to the Greeks being forced into the sea, as they say, headlong. But we didn't have the capability to destroy them. We didn't have enough men or equipment, etc. And if it wasn't for the help of Russia, like for instance, a lot of money came from the Muslim Indians, which later became Pakistan, and that's why there's a special bond of brotherhood between Turkey and Pakistan. The money came there, and the arms came from Russia.
So we weren't bad with Russia in World War One.
No, this is after the Tsar collapse.
Okay, this is sponsored communist
Communists under Lenin.
takeover. Okay.
So there was various meetings. Even Stalin, who later became one of the famous dictators of Russia and led the World War II resistance against Nazi, he even was involved in negotiations with the Turkish nationalists.
Yeah.
Okay, and those arms and equipment, assisted us to be able to fight the war. But we won the war because there was a sheer will determination of the people to resist.
Yeah.
Even though we had suffered so much and lost, every family had lost sons, fathers, uncles, devastated. World War I devastated us. You have to understand, World War I we joined the war in 1914. But in 1913, we had the Balkan Wars. Now, at that time, theoretically, I think apart from Macedonia and Albania and these places, they're still part of the Ottoman state. Okay, so we still got a big presence in Western Thrace, Thracia. Thracia was still part of the Ottoman state, and Macedonia, and going towards the Adriatic Sea too. So if you look at the map, it's quite a. Now we were attacked by Serbia, Greece, Montenegro, and I think Romania in the first Balkan War. Bulgaria, another big one.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised at the ethnic cleansing that occurred in Bulgaria. Bulgaria also had a very high percentage of Muslims, about 50%.
Yeah.
They killed so many Muslims, they couldn't bury them.
Naim Kurt kind of mentioned that. I don't know. Do you know Naim Kurt? He's part of the council in Hume.
No, probably not.
His family comes from there, and he kind of mentioned that what they did there, they tried pretty much, as you said, try to ethnically cleanse them, ethnically cleanse the Turks there.
Yeah, well, the modern cleansing, the modern oppression was to do with making them Bulgarians, just much like what is happening in other parts of the world, where you get your name taken away from you, you're forced to eat pork, or you're forced to you're not allowed to fast, you're not allowed to pray, you can't speak your mother language, you can't circumcise your children. Mm-hmm. This was imposed, and this is where our famous wrestler named Süleymanoglu, he lived through this era, and that's why he defected.
Yeah, okay. He's a national hero.
But I'm actually talking about mass genocide. So if you think Srebrenica, the Bosnian genocides, the anniversary was a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Imagine that in the whole country. You're talking about, hundreds, millions actually. There was so much murder and genocide. They couldn't bury the bodies, and in fact, the British came and bought the dead bodies which had been rotted in the ground, and bought them as fertilizer. This is recorded. You can read up on this.
Wow.
Yeah. It was amazing, mass slaughter. That's quite upsetting when everyone thinks the Turks are such a bad boy. You know, it's always, when I was growing up, I used to read books, right? There was no internet, right?
Yeah.
So you would read books if you wanted to gain knowledge. And every book I read was anti-Turk, anti-Muslim. They all couldn't find one good thing said about us, right? Because that's the basis. And that is what comes out even in the politics today. You have to look at it from a historical context. Mm-hmm. So when they play around with us, right? They're saying, oh, yeah, we'll make you a member of the EU. But never until I was caught on tape saying, we'll just tell them this and we'll tell them that and we'll fool them and, you know. And France eventually came out and said, no, you will never be a member of the EU. And some others came out and said, no, EU is a Christian-based group.
Yeah.
And we don't want you.
Well,
so that's when the Turkish people said, okay, stuff you, we're going our own way too.
Yeah.
Okay. But why are you still trying to tell us what to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want us in your club, but you're telling us what to do, what our foreign policy should be, what our economic policy should be. Well, we're independent people, you know? So can't have your cake and eat it too. That's a famous, you know, thing. So the Balkan Wars devastated us as of 1913. And then a couple of years later, you're sending the rest of the population into war. It gutted us. It gutted us. And we were, once the Republic was established, there was a long period of time before repopulation from other Turkic people happened. So you had the population exchange between Greece and Turkey. So Greece and Turkey sat down and said, oh, we've got this ongoing problem. How are we going to sort this out? Okay. You keep interfering in our affairs. We keep interfering in your affairs. Okay. If you just become Greek and we just become Turkish, we shouldn't have a conflict.
Yeah.
It was a nice idea. It worked for a while until, you know, the Cyprus issue and then the islands issue and where your boats can travel and where they can't, where you can fly your planes and all this stuff.
Well, what happened to you? Let's talk about Australia. What happened to you when you came here? What was the 60s like? You're saying that you were around some of the Greek Cypriots.
I was never. No. What I'm saying is when the original Turks came off the island, came off the boat into Port Melbourne, and they came by ship. So it was like my dad's journey was 3 months. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. Stop at Malta, then Egypt, then find your way through the Suez Canal, and it was a long journey.
Was there any racism though? That's what I'm trying to get at. Was there any racism between Turks and Greeks? Was there any confrontation between them when you were living here in Australia?
No. Okay. Oh, no, not when my dad landed. So those troubles in Cyprus hadn't happened. This is 1950.
Yeah. In the 60s.
So there was a club in the city. I think it's still in Brunswick. It's still there. It's a Greek Cypriot club. You can go and visit it.
Okay.
And overall, there's still no. You know, you can go and sit down with a Greek Cypriot and have coffee and eat something. There's on a person-to-person basis. There's still, you know, it depends on the person, of course.
Yeah.
But you know, I always judge that, you know, if you have dialogue with someone and eating and drinking with someone is always the best way to get to understand somebody. We're all human beings at the end of the day.
So true.
But we're unable to resolve our differences. And this is where nationalism and religion play a role, because people say, I will want to dominate you because basically I love who I am and I don't like who you are because you're not who I am. So you should live under my rule, right? This is the basis of nationalism and religion used in a political context, right? In a political context, domination. The taking a resource. But that Greek Cypriot club, you could walk in there, have a Turkish coffee, Greek coffee, whatever you want to call it. They can chat, they play backgammon. When the problems started, but the Turkish Cypriots said, nah, we need our own club. So they started their own club. And eventually we got our first place in Cardigan Street, Carlton. Mm-hmm. And we used to use that as a community. This is in the early 60s. The Albanian mosque, which is the first mosque ever in Melbourne. Yeah. That was already established and still there in Carlton. And we're across the road. And we were there for a while until we moved to Richmond and then to Sunshine, and we built the Sunshine Mosque. However, what was it like for me? It wasn't good. Okay, so by now we'd moved to Moonee Ponds, away from the Turkish Cypriot population or community.
Why?
Why wasn't it good for me? Okay.
No, but why did you move to Moonee Ponds?
Okay, my enishte passed away. He'd just bought a milk bar.
Yep.
And my teza, of course, my dad stepped in to salvage the situation and took over the business.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Moonee Ponds. Okay. And there were no Turks in Moonee Ponds. Okay. No, so I had a hard time because, the Cypriot political situation changed now. Now we started having those intercommunal violence occurring. Yeah. And now people that were your friends are no longer your friends, yeah? This is that situation I'm getting into. So,
because obviously their fathers are saying something, your father, the Turkish fathers are saying something else, and
you couldn't walk down the street where I lived, just like Turco this and Turco that. It's like an insult. It's like nigger, right, or wog. It's a direct, horrible way of addressing you. You're not even a person. You're a Turk, Yeah. And it's a Turk in a derogatory way. So in Moonee Ponds at the time, we basically had mainly an Italian and Greek population.
Okay. And
my school was, I was a very unfit, unhealthy kid. I suffered severe asthma. And we didn't have Ventolin back then. And, Ventolin is what prevents it. I mean, if I had a major attack, they would just take me to Royal Children's Hospital. And it was a situation where the kid 3 beds down from me would die that night that I'm there. Mm. And they'd just take his body away. And it was a shocking thing because, and we saw that recurred, right, when we had the dust storm cloud situation a few years ago that young people were dying and some old people even died because these allergies just came on too quickly, too strong, and storm-induced asthma like that was a new phenomenon due to climate change. I don't want to get into that because it's climate change is another topic. But anyway, we hadn't seen that before, so it killed very quickly. Mm. But there was no actual treatment. You went to hospital and you lived or you died, So I was an unsickly child. So I was in no position. I can get 8 or 10 people chasing me down the street to bash me because I'm a Turk, and things like this. So
and that didn't help.
It didn't help having asthma. Couldn't run anyway. So you're going to get slapped around, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as soon as they did invent Ventolin, I took that and I could breathe and I could run.
Yeah.
First thing I wanted to do was do some martial arts. So I noticed there was a session at RMIT where I was doing my economics degree, and my first karate instructor, his name's Hanshi Tino Cebrano. He's got a famous daughter, Kate Cebrano. You might know her from a pop band, Kate Cebrano. Mm. Anyway, he brought karate over here. There was no karate. There was only judo in Australia. He came in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And very impressed me with his power and stuff. And I joined up there and I studied that. I stayed with that art for a while. And then I got into, I worked a bit as a security guard, and I found that the karate wasn't, being a traditional art, it wasn't giving me the practical things I needed. I didn't feel it realistic, and that bullying that I encountered during my primary and high school years it sears you, and this is why it's a terrible thing, and this is why the schools address it, because there's people have suicided over it, and it's bad, right? So
they address it, but they don't address it in the right ways.
I don't know. All I'm saying is that. Yeah. Whatever programs they've got, they're looking at it, yeah? And bullying is something which really can hurt people.
Yeah.
And if anyone encourages it, well, just shame on you. And what our responsibilities are as parents or friends of others is if we see bullying, we should address it.
Definitely.
Because it leaves a psychological impact on that child.
Yeah.
That they have to carry throughout their life. And no one should be bullied, right? That aside, you're bullied, okay, fine. Okay, but what I'm saying to you is that protection or self-protection or self-defense became something that I became very interested in, a result of that bullying. So when I was able to do sport, I got myself involved in this stuff. And then when I got to the security, I found, hang on, this scrapping that was going on, it wasn't quite working for me. So I was always looking for something that was real, right? So I found a Silat instructor who looked the part, and looked pretty much like he could really turn it on, and he could. And we started studying under him. I brought him over here, and numerous times we had a training group, and that was the start of what was the Silat Combat Academy. And we were located, we first started training out of my garage at Roxborough Park.
How were you guys training? What was it different to compared to your karate?
Okay, I'll tell you what the Southeastern Asian mentality is.
Yeah.
Okay. My first instructor, Hanshi Tino, he's a grandmaster, amazing person, it really is, said, you know what, we're all going to go to the Philippines. You know, it's just selected a group of 10, and I was in that group. We headed off to the Philippines. Okay, this is in 1992 now. Okay, so I would just knew traditional, martial arts at that time.
Yeah.
Well, we're on a bus, and we get stopped at a checkpoint, and there's dead bodies against the wall there, and there's blood splattered all over the wall.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm saying, wow, what's happened here? So the traffic's banked up. And one of our tour operators was a military person. He got out and started chatting with these guys, and he came back in the bus. And so they asked him what happened. He said, "Don't worry about it. They're drug pushers, they're drug dealers, and we just killed them." Okay, all right. And now openly, if you Google, Philippine government policy on drug dealers, you'll see that they kill them.
They're still doing it till today.
Oh, they're openly doing it today. Yeah. Then it was hush hush. Yeah.
Okay.
That's hush hush. But now the president, Duarte, is the president of the Philippines.
Yeah.
Openly encourages it. He was the mayor of Mindanao, and which is a southern island, and he just openly encourages it.
He doesn't care what he says on.
He doesn't care. No one can topple
TV.
him. Right?
Yeah.
He's one of the tough men of the region.
Yeah.
But then it was hush hush, and then I started to ask questions. I've got an inquisitive mind, and I found out this. They said they're almost laughing at us. They're saying, you people from these Western countries, you're a bunch of idiots. You're clowns. So, what's that? He says, you want to box? Or you want to punch in the nose and get the black guy in the blood nose? Yeah. You're stupid. Yeah. I take this and you're gone, man. You're gone. You're gone. You finished, lah.
Wow.
So what they're saying is they use the heavy stuff first, because this is battle. This is survival, right? So the
guns,
the mentalities
the knives,
come out with the AK, right? Or the M16, whatever. Throw that out. Come out with the tabanja.
Yep.
Doesn't work. Get the knife. Get the machete. Then they, last resort, hand to hand. What's our first? Let's not get too serious. We don't want anybody to be injured. Are you safe? Have you got your groin guard on? Is your deodorant on? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Okay, yeah.
You're saying, okay, oh man, I beat that guy up, man. He's got a black eye. You should see it, man. No, but over there, it's about who lives and who doesn't. And I'm telling you, these guys, they really switch it on. So it was a big culture shock for me. That's like, whoa. I said, this is as real. And thank God we live in a law-abiding country. We don't have these issues that they have in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Everyone lives according to the law, and that's great. But man, I've seen these guys fight do things that I've never seen in Australia. I've never seen from any martial artist. And you're talking about my own instructor having all decades upon decades of experience and reputation, autobiographies, books written about him, over there to learn. And this is something I say to all the big hot shots, the masters of the world. And I'm being humble when I say this, but I learned this something from someone else, and he said, always a student and sometimes a teacher. And I've lived by that philosophy. I took my students wherever I went to learn from anyone I wanted to for anything new.
Yeah.
Whereas, what do your traditional guys say? You can't train with him. You can't train at that club. You have to stay here and you have to stay loyal. You pick this system or you pick that system. So cross-training wasn't encouraged back then, right? Because it's all, at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of it is business, yeah? I wasn't interested in business. I had a higher reason for doing this stuff. It wasn't money. It was about, I want to gain that knowledge. And people would say, well, why would you want to gain that knowledge if you never use it? But why do people read history? It's not something you can use, but it helps you understand something. And if you even put it back into context, you are what you train, right? So if you are ready for self-protection, you are. If you're not, you're not. Will the situation arise? I hope to God it doesn't arise. I don't want to. Who wants to engage in a physical confrontation? Then you're not. Basically, if you want to, then you are unsound, if you want to put it that way. You've got a propensity to gate satisfaction out of violence.
Yeah.
So self-protection, the old word for that is self-defense. But self-protection means a lot more. For instance, self-awareness.
Yeah.
So right now, are you aware of how many weapons there are on this table? I already know how many weapons. Not only do I know how many weapons there are, I know how to use them right now.
Yeah.
Right. So you see what I'm saying? There's knowing with the danger from your back. Is it from your left? Is it from your right?
Yeah.
When you approach your car, are you aware of anything outside? Is there anything unusual? So self-protection encompasses a lot more than just the techniques of self-defense. And so from this Silat Combat Academy and training, we went over to...
Who's we?
We being a group of like-minded people from Melbourne.
Is this the CQB?
No, CQB came. So this is early formative years.
Okay.
So military personnel and police, they get taught a system called close quarter protection.
Yeah.
Or CQB, which stands for close quarter battle, or CQF, close quarter fighting.
Yeah.
It means the same thing. Short, dirty techniques to finish the job quickly.
Okay.
And why is that? Because the army has better things to do than spend 10 years teaching its soldiers how to fight. They're out in 3 years. They just need to know how to survive, yeah? And they know how to do their job quickly. It's likewise police. A lot of administration paperwork to do and a lot of other things to train in. So don't waste time on that. And they usually actually hire civilian self-defense contractors or so-called martial arts experts to come into the academies and teach them, okay? Because they're the experts and they're not, right?
Yeah.
So I started hearing about some ex-Green Berets that were resident in Thailand that were teaching civilians now. And that was a no-no. When I was around, you couldn't find it. I was looking for something that I couldn't find. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And these guys, they're all ex-Vietnam War vets, and you might want to call them a failure in life or whatever, which when I say that, they're suffering post-traumatic stress and those sort of things. So they went back to the USA after the war and, they couldn't make their families work anymore and they couldn't hold down a job. And, they went back to Southeast Asia and many of them ended up in Bangkok and married local women and carried their problems with them. Some sorted themselves out, some didn't. But they had very good relations with the Thai military there. So I went over there and I trained with a gentleman, ex-Green Beret, James Webb, and he ran something called Special Forces Combatives there, and we had a very interesting training camp.
Yeah. And
that opened my eyes up further. By this time, my own group, the Silat Combat Academy, which is located out at 72 East Street, Hadfield, down the road there.
Yeah.
We were doing things like we were training in weapons and like machetes and knife techniques and things that...
How would you do that, though? Like what? Would you swing it?
Oh, well,
something.
okay. If you swing it at me,
Yeah.
I can tell from where your shoulder lifts that you're going to go in a certain direction. But, you've got to look at the length of the weapon. So here's your arm, and say the machete extends the weapon out that much.
Yeah.
I got to jam that weapon. That's the first thing. So is it coming to my left or is it coming to my right? If I go center line, I'll probably be in on you before that. But by using the technique with your arm, you're actually exposing yourself because you've committed to that technique. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now I'm countering that technique. But once I'm in, the benefits of the close quarter combat training is that once you're in, it specializes on demolishing from the inside.
Okay. Because
you're jammed up, yeah?
Yeah.
So you can't use those great kicks. It's like, how can someone who's a great kicker kick me if I'm not in kicking range? So fighting is either long range, medium range, or short range. This is close. So this short range, yeah, close quarter. You can no longer use those things that you've trained in at that distance, and that specializes you to go to work. All right, so we're already training in this stuff, and we excelled over there. So there were groups from Hong Kong, China, Germany, Switzerland, all over the world. Even 3 different groups from Australia, New Zealand, and we did extremely well. We got that on tape too. So it's not me boasting or anything like that. I don't boast. I'm not that sort of person. But the training I saw immediately, it was working, right? And that's what I said I was looking for. Because in the security game, I quickly worked out the traditional. Trying to apply it traditionally doesn't work. So they'll say to you, okay, but you have to modify it now. You have to modify it. Excuse me, I don't have 10 years of my life to study something for you to say to me, use it a different way and it'll work. Just teach me the right way. Because I've got to get a job. I've got to go to, I've got things to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm not being ungrateful because it gave me a foundation. It made my body strong. Because I was a weak kid, like I said, I didn't get the benefits of exercise when I was young. Yeah. So it helped me build my base. It made me strong. It improved my breathing. It helped, right? So I was able to jump in and get it right. Okay, so from this guy, I met the military personnel. I went back and they had a cadet course there, which they put their special forces through as a 6-week boot camp. They modified that for 1 week for us, and we went and trained with the airborne forces in Thailand, special forces out in Lopburi, and graduated from that. That had some very interesting training components in there. And from there, I just sought out every sort of specialist I could find, whether it was from ex-SWAT, ex-military, ex-police, ex-whatever. If I thought they knew something, I would go and visit them or bring them here or look out for them and train with them. So at this time, Bob Gabashak, an ex-Yugoslav, a special police guy who had he's specialist in Wing Chun.
Yeah.
But he was also like-minded, into the reality thing. He now specializes in firearms in Thailand, and he resides in Thailand.
Yeah.
But he had a club out here, and he brought out a lot of guest instructors, and his group is called Close Quarter CQB International. Okay.
Yep.
So that's his group, CQB International Group, which stands for Close Quarter Battle. And
that you are now a part of, is that right?
No, we were a part of that.
Yep.
And we left. At that time, Orkun Ankara had his own system. He's also a realist. He's in the mind of realism. Mm-hmm. We hadn't got together yet. He was running another club down in Roxburgh Park, part-time at one of that gym, Nissa HOIC. I've forgotten the name of that gym.
Is that somewhere that he's just recently relocated to? Because he's had something before that, didn't he, in Glenroy?
No, that's the 72 East Street. That was originally my academy.
Okay.
So just to recap, he was just running a part-time school in Roxburgh Park at that gym next fitness. Oh, I don't forgot the name anyway. Everyone it was hot once. No one's. I don't know.
Hotspot or whatever it was.
It was a hotspot there. It's near HRYC in that area there.
Yep.
Anyways, running a class there, and I said to Orkun, I said, "Listen, you're around the corner from me, and we're teaching the very similar things. Why don't we just get together?" He came over to one of my seminars that I was running with an international guest instructor, and we got close, and I said to him, "It doesn't make sense for you to be running a school over there, and I'm running this school over here. Just come along here, come and visit CQB Group International." And we both joined the CQB Group International. Well, I was already a member of the CQB Group International for like 5-year period before that.
Mm-hmm.
But Orkun came in. We rebranded. So I got rid of his was an extreme close quarter this self-defense name or something like that, and mine was Select Combat Academy.
Yeah. And he also does security work and stuff like that.
He's a security industry expert.
Okay.
So that's his full-time job as a trainer.
Yeah.
Awesome realist, and we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we joined up, and we rebranded CQB Group, and then we became CQB Global in 72 East Street, and I've since retired from that, and Orkun is opening up a new school, or relocating the school to Roxburgh Park. I encourage everyone that wants to learn close quarter combat to go and try a lesson for free there. Go and meet Orkun. He's an awesome instructor. I would personally recommend, I would say he's one of the best close quarter instructors in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can get him on the show.
Yeah, get him on the show.
Discuss a few things with him as well.
Yeah. So apart from that, I'm involved in a lot of community work as well down at the Sunshine Mosque. I'm a trustee over there. Want to put a word out for Melbourne Muslimas, which my partner is a part of that group, and what they do is they assist underprivileged women.
Okay.
Muslim or non-Muslim.
Who's your partner?
My partner is Selin Rifat.
Okay.
It's partner's a new word for wife or your partner, right?
Okay.
So don't think of it as a business partner.
I thought it was business partner.
No,
but
whenever I used to say,
Yeah.
this person, well, that was my partner, and people thought, they were your partner. Now
it's different now because I'm in the business world. When you say partner,
no, you have to say business partner.
Business, it makes
if you
sense.
said to someone, my partner, right, it now means basically your spouse.
Yeah.
Or you don't say wife, because it's misogynist to say wife or husband or whatever. So it's non-gender. As you say, your partner. So my wife, if you want to be traditionalist,
let's be traditionalist.
My wife, let's be traditionalist. Now everyone knows what we're talking about. My wife, Selin Rifat, is also a community activist. She's part of a group called Melbourne Muslims that help underprivileged women. They help people. Now, a lot of people know about men in jail or brothers in jail, but not many people are aware that there are sisters in jail too. And not many people offer that assistance to those sisters in jail. Okay? So there's only one Muslim chaplain. My hat goes out to her sister, Lina Ayubi. She's overwhelmed with work. The demand is unbelievable. So she is working day and night trying to assist the sister. Sarah J., who's the chairman, I think, of Melbourne Muslims, working along with a host of other committee members to try and help the sisters. So I just wanted people to be aware of the fact that there are people that need assistance, and if you see that name being advertised and they need any assistance, go out and help them. For instance,
well, how do we help them?
Well,
how do we find them?
I'll give you an example. During Ramadan, my wife was cooking Ramadan meals, right? So the benefits, the blessings of breaking someone's fast. So we said, send our money over to Bangladesh or Yemen or somewhere. Okay, there are people that need meals now, and we're not aware of that because we think everyone's got the same standard of living that you and I have. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's not true. There are sisters out there that can't pay rent. There are sisters out there that
So sisters, you're saying single mums with children.
sisters, I'm saying, well, they could have just been released from jail,
Okay.
or they could have come out of an abusive relationship,
Okay.
and they're in a refuge with kids. They don't have anything because they had to flee the house, right? So they have to live, with nothing. So there's no furniture, no clothes, and people are not aware that you can actually do direct benefit here in Melbourne by helping people that are in dire straits.
Okay.
That's all I want to say.
So how do we find Melbourne Muslima?
Melbourne Muslima's got a Facebook page.
Okay.
You can hop on Facebook and send them a message, and just I'd really appreciate it if you got Sarah J on podcast.
Inshallah, yeah.
Inshallah, and she can really delve into it and tell you
Some of the experiences she's faced.
And look at, say, Malcolm X, for instance.
Yeah.
Malcolm X, he was an ex-jailbird, and look at the
Influences he's done for
influence
us.
that he's left on the Muslim community, and the barakah that still continues from people are still coming to Islam as a result of his life and his teaching. And he helped me. Right? When I was at Ramadan, I picked up a book and I read the last page, and it said, I may not live long enough to read this book, but if I've made a mistake, that's my mistake. And if I have done anything to help my people, then all blessings are due to Allah. So what he's saying is, if I've made a mistake, that's my mistake, but all blessings belong to Allah, and I'm not going to live. I was blown away by this man, this courage of this man. And it was great that, he influenced me. I started delving deeper into Islam at that stage. And, some years later, just recently actually, me and Orkun, we looked after his daughter. She came on a speaking tour here, Ilyasa Shabazz. And, almost shed a quiet tear because when I told her that I named my second son after her father, we tried to hold it back, So she was just blown away that one of the guys looking after her security detail was in fact so heavily influenced by her father.
Wow.
All over the world, everywhere. So it's great. You want to hang out with winners all the time. You want to be with
The successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
The strong.
who did the prophets look? They looked at what was below them, and they helped the people that needed the help.
By lifting them up with them.
Well, brother, Islam started from, the majority of the followers were poor people, ex-slaves or slaves, and same as the disciples of Jesus, they weren't powerful people.
Yeah.
Or wherever you look. Okay, you get the benefits by helping people who need help.
That's true leadership.
That is it, and that's community leadership. That's being responsible and getting favors from your Creator, because that's what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so that being in mind, if you can, reach out to them, that'd be great.
Definitely.
They're doing great work.
Definitely, Abi. Ekrem Abi, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I hope, it's been a pleasure being here, and thanks for inviting me.
Not a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, subscribe to our Facebook page. Like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.